Welcome back. Now, recently, TotalEnergies announced its withdrawal from gas projects in the Eastern Cape Coast. This decision marks a significant setback for the country's energy sector, as TotalEnergies was a key player in the development of these potential resources. Joining me now to explore the implications of this exit is Executive Director of the Industrial Gas Users Association of Southern Africa, Jaco Human. Jaco, thanks so much for your time today. Now, it's been weeks since TotalEnergies, made this announcement, and it has rocked the industry. Just right at the top, put things into perspective for us. What's happening here?
I think it's very important to understand that TotalEnergies is not exiting South Africa. So it did indicate that it will continue exploration activities, particularly in the Orange Basin, south of the Namibian border. Now, this particular resource, the fact that TotalEnergies exit that together with its international partners, Qatar Energy and others, is a significant setback for us, without a doubt. The issue is that in South Africa, we're transitioning towards a gas-dependent economy, and this is part of our decarbonization journey. It's getting away from coal power generation and so on and so forth. So we're becoming, on the one hand, more reliant on gas energy. This was the only real resource, or the only real resource that we have at the moment that we could monetize as a country. Now, the implications of that largely sits at the economic level, because domestic gas is always more efficient than imported gas. But the reality is, for a large international oil company to exit this project and write off its losses, is significant. And it's an opportunity that we missed as a country to monetize this resource.
Now let's talk about why Total is actually, it's exiting those resources in particular. We're hearing a lot of noise around red tape. Is that the case?
We don't know for a fact. I mean, but Total states that it's because of the technical issues surrounding the resource. It is in a particularly difficult area, but Total certainly is one of the leading companies in the world that could certainly exploit from a technical perspective. So that leaves us certainly with the one option that Total had and its partners to monetize this, and this was with the Central Energy Fund and Petro SA in South Africa. And I think that is exactly there where the transaction did not materialize for Total, and for various reasons. But I think most recently, it's the fact that this Petro SA, Central Energy Fund, in our view, could not fully take the advantage that it should have, to exploit this resource for the benefit of the country, either in terms of petrochemicals or power generation.
Now, at the top, you mentioned that Total is not exiting South Africa as a whole, and that, they're still invested in the resource at the Orange River Basin. What's the difference between the project that they've exited and the project that they're still involved in?
I faced that question a couple of times, and my only answer is really money flows like water. It flows where it flows easiest. And I think Total certainly sees much more potential in the broader Orange Basin, also on the Namibian side. Remember, the investments flowing from TotalEnergies and other large international oil companies into the Orange Basin are absolutely significant on global terms. So if you take what is happening in Southern Africa at the moment, I mean, you see developments in northern Mozambique, Tanzania, Namibia, and South Africa simply needs to catch up. We have the gas. We simply need to monetize it.
And how do we go about doing that?
What is lacking at the moment is an integrated policy framework. And particularly from a gas energy perspective, you have to look at this from a upstream, midstream and downstream perspective. Upstream being exactly exploitation of these type of resources. Midstream is bringing all that energy and value to the market, and then of course downstream is enabling the market to consume that. So connecting all of that through a gas master plan would absolutely be important for us to move forward as a gas economy.
All right, let's get back to that project yet again. I understand that there's still one remaining partner, Africa Energy. Now, they're quite upbeat about the project, regardless of what has currently happening. But what would they need to get, the program back on schedule? Would they need another partner, perhaps?
So I cannot speak for the remaining partners really, but I mean, usually these projects are managed in partnerships with other large entities or conglomerate of large companies. In this instance, the two largest partners, QatarEnergy and TotalEnergies, exited the program. What they would need was what TotalEnergy and Qatar sought. It sought for the state to monetize this potential resource. The economic benefits of this are significant. I mean, domestic gas is probably half the cost of imported gas, yet we are very focused on imported gas at the moment.
You know, Jaco, we've had a lot of disinvestment within South Africa, and a lot of people would say there was just a lot of uncertainty in the first 6 months of the year as we were, you know, waiting for the national election to wrap up. We've seen what has happened with TotalEnergies. We've seen what has happened with Shell, as well as, you know, the case with BHP when they were vying for those Anglo assets. What story does this put out for the investment case for South Africa? Are we worth investing in?
That's a good question. As an economist myself, we often ponder this exact question. I think from an investment perspective, South Africa has lost its sort of relevance, especially over the last 15 years. We are hopeful that with the new administration, and our engagements with the new administration and the energy ministry has certainly been very positive. And we believe that from an integrated energy planning perspective, out of that follows gas master planning, electricity planning, and so on and so forth, that all of this would be weaved together so that these policy frameworks can actually be established. So the frameworks are critically important. Then the next question is who invests in what and who takes risk. So we have to enable the state to take some of the risk in these projects. Otherwise, the private sector would simply not be able to pick up all the risk, particularly in these type of economies, which are network-based economies.
Would you then say also maybe perhaps government and the private sector is doing enough in terms of, you know, collaborating and, you know, getting those projects up and going? We've seen what's happened with Eskom. We've seen what's currently happening with Transnet when you're seeing both public and private sector working together. Do we just need more of that?
Exactly. So I think we're only starting.
Yeah.
As a policy position, economic policy position by the national government, I think we're only starting with these collaborations. It does hold us in good stead, and I think it's only with the collaboration between the state and the private sector that these type of critical economies would be able to be as a catalyst, you know, for economic growth. I mean, energy is one area where we've seen some successes in the electricity space, but we are now faced with a significant gas energy risks as we sit here. We're faced with a gas cliff in the coming years, and we simply need to find alternatives.
Jaco, thanks so much for joining us and just taking us through everything that's playing out within the gas industry. That was Executive Director of the Industrial Gas Users Association of Southern Africa, Jaco Human.